Julian's voice was everywhere in San Diego, on podcasts, on stage, accepting awards for his singular vision. From my quiet house in Escondido, I listened. He'd been telling his story for 40 years. He just forgot I was still alive. He forgot I was watching. And he forgot that I was the one who still held the key. The heat in Escondido was a dry, heavy blanket. It pressed down on the small yard, baking the terracotta tiles of my patio and wilting the bougainvillea. I knelt on a foam pad, my knees aching, and pushed a small trowel into the stubborn, cracked soil. Dirt worked its way under my fingernails, a familiar grit. I was 77 years old, and life had become very small, very quiet. A bird chirped from the eaves of my small house. A car passed on the street, its tires a distant shush. On the rusted metal bench beside me, my phone was propped against a clay pot. A voice was coming from its small speaker. And we knew, even then, we were changing the conversation in San Diego. It was a struggle, of course. The voice was deep, practiced, and smooth. It was Julian's. I paused, my hand deep in the soil. I did not want to stop, but I made myself listen. He was the guest on a podcast about California design. The host was young, her voice bright and eager. "You're being honored at the gala tonight, Julian," the host said. "The Digital Pioneer Award. Tell us about those early days, the origin story." I heard a sound I remembered well. Julian, clearing his throat before a performance. Then the sound of polite, distant applause. He was at the gala right now, talking to a crowd, and that talk was being broadcast. "Thank you. Thank you. The early days," he laughed, a warm, practiced sound. It was just me. A drafting table in a tiny North Park apartment. I had this idea, this singular vision. I remember one night, I was completely stuck on the logo for our first client. I must have sketched 100 versions. I closed my eyes. The sun was hot on my eyelids. I remembered that night. It was not a North Park apartment. It was our small office in Golden Hill. My drafting table, not his. My hand, drawing the interlocking C and S for Coronado shipping. He had been asleep on the sofa. And then, Julian continued, it came to me. In a flash, the perfect design. I knew then. I knew this was my path. I poured everything I had into it. My money, my time, my life. I waited. I held my breath, the trowel heavy in my hand. I waited for him to say my name. To say, my partner Eleanor, she had an idea. To say, we worked on it together. The host spoke again. "It's an amazing story, Julian. An inspiration. To build such an empire from nothing but an idea." "I was driven," Julian said. "You have to be. No one else will build it for you." My name did not come. I pulled the trowel from the earth, shaking soil from the roots of a dead weed. 40 years. 40 years of him telling that story. First, it was we. Then, for a few years, it was I with some help. Then, just I. I reached over and pressed my thumb to the phone screen. The voices stopped. The silence of my yard rushed in. The bird, the distant car, the sound of my own breathing. I stared at the cracked dirt. He called it a singular vision. He was right. It was singular. It had pushed me out, pushed my name out, until I was just a ghost, an old woman kneeling in the dust in Escondido. He had forgotten me. He had forgotten I was watching. He had forgotten I could still listen. But I remembered everything. I remembered the man who sat across from me, the man who told me I was not strong enough, the man who took my hand, told me he was protecting me, and asked me to sign the papers. I closed my eyes. The memory I kept locked away was right there, sharp and clear. It was not a memory. It was a promise. I pushed myself up from the foam pad. My joints complained with a series of small dry pops. I picked up the trowel, caked with soil, and my phone. The screen was dark. His voice was gone, but the echo of it stayed in my head. Inside, the house was dim and cool. The blinds were drawn against the afternoon sun. The air smelled of old paper and furniture polish. I walked past the living room, with its sofa covered in a clean white sheet, and went into my small kitchen. I washed my hands at the sink, scrubbing the dirt from under my nails with a stiff brush. I dried my hands on a towel and walked down the short hall to my study. On the wall, just inside the door, was a framed photograph. It was the only one I kept. It was Julian and me, standing in the doorway of our first office in Golden Hill. We were in our 30s. He had his arm around my shoulder, smiling wide, his hair thick and dark. I was smiling too, but my eyes were on the glass of the door. On the black vinyl letters I had so carefully applied myself. They read, Julian and Eleanor Designs. I stood there, looking at the two young people in the photograph. We looked happy. We looked like a team. I turned away from the picture and sat down at the desk. The desk was old, made of dark, heavy wood. It dominated the small room. On it sat an older model computer, the monitor thick, the tower humming quietly on the floor. The walls around me were not decorated. They were covered in tall metal filing cabinets. Not for business, for me. Physical ledgers, notebooks, old calendars, my memory. I stared at the black and white photo, and the memory I held back in the garden came rushing in. It wasn't the day of the photo. It was the day the photo came down. We were at a small coffee shop in Hillcrest. It was raining, a rare thing for San Diego. The windows were fogged up. The smell of burnt coffee was thick in the air. Julian did not look at me. He stirred his coffee, his eyes on the small, swirling whirlpool in his cup. He had just lost a major client. He had missed a deadline. He had blamed me. Eleanor, he said. His voice was low, filled with a sadness that felt rehearsed. I'm worried about you. I put my own cup down. Worried? Julian, I fixed the code. I'm the one who called the client and smoothed things over. That's what I mean. He finally looked at me, his eyes full of deep, false concern. The stress. It's too much for you. You're not sleeping. You're snapping at everyone. I'm not, I said, but my voice was small. I was tired. I was tired of fixing his mistakes. My love, he said, and he reached across the table, covering my hand with his. His skin was warm. Mine was cold. You are not built for this world. It's a good thing. You're better than this. You're an artist. This business side, this ugliness, it's hurting you. I wanted to pull my hand away. I wanted to list all the times I had saved us. The nights I balanced the books, the code I wrote, the designs I sketched. But I was so tired, and he was so convincing. I can't watch it eat you alive, he said. Let me take this burden, Elle. Let me protect you. He slid a stack of papers across the wet table. They were thick, bound in a blue cover. What is this? It restructures things, he said, waving a hand. It makes me the sole managing partner. It takes all the legal and financial weight off your shoulders. You can just create. No more stress. Just the art, like you've always wanted. He was offering me the very thing I thought I craved. An escape. A protector. He abandoned me emotionally, right there in that coffee shop, long before he took my name off the door. He made me feel small. He made me feel weak. He made me feel vulnerable, and I believed him. I picked up the pen. I signed my name. My eyes refocused on the study, the dark wood of the desk, the hum of the computer. I had been a fool, but I was not weak, and I was not a ghost. I moved the mouse. The computer screen woke up. I opened my email program. It was old, but it worked. I typed a word into the search bar, renewal. A list of emails appeared, one for every year, going back 2 decades. I clicked the most recent one, from 3 months ago. Thank you for your purchase, the text read. Your domain registration for julianeleanordesigns.com has been successfully renewed for 1 year. I had purchased it all those years ago. I had set up the first server. I had paid the bill for it from my own separate account every single year for 40 years. He had built his new, shiny empire on a new, flashy domain, julianvance.com. He had forgotten the original. He had forgotten the keys, but I had not. I left the email open on the screen. The domain name, julianeleanordesigns.com, sat there. A key. I opened a new window in the web browser. The computer's fan spun up with a low, whistling hum. My bookmarks were old, but the links still worked. I clicked the first one. The San Diego Business Journal. I scanned the headlines. I did this every morning, just as some people read the sports page. It was a habit, a quiet, private ritual. I was not looking for any specific news. I was just watching, checking the ledger, but today was different. His face was there at the top of the page. It was a professional photo. Julian in his late 70s, but he looked vibrant. His hair was silver, perfectly styled. He wore an expensive blue jacket and a confident, easy smile. The headline was large. Julian Vance sells firm to Global Syntex. I had been tracking the rumors for months. Global Syntex, a massive international conglomerate. This was it, the final move. The last chapter of his story, written and sold. His legacy, cemented. I clicked the article. My hand was steady on the mouse. It was a press release posted just 1 hour ago, while he was at the gala, while he was on the podcast. The deal was done. I read the words. A landmark acquisition. A celebration of decades of innovation. A perfect fit for the Global Syntex portfolio. I scrolled down past the corporate language. I was looking for the quotes. I found one from the CEO of Global Syntex. A man in Zurich or London. We are not just acquiring a company, the CEO said. We are acquiring a legacy. We are thrilled to partner with the singular vision of its founder, Julian Vance. My eyes stopped. Singular vision. The same 2 words from the podcast. The same 2 words he had practiced. It was the lie. His lie. Now it was their lie. It was printed. It was official. It was being filed away in boardrooms, repeated by reporters, and accepted as history. The air in the study felt very still. I could smell the dust on the old filing cabinets. I could feel the hard wood of the chair under me. He was on a stage right now in San Diego. People were clapping. They were celebrating his singular vision. The world was watching him. He was so high up, so focused on the applause, he would never think to look down. He would never in a million years think to look back. He had stopped checking over his shoulder a long, long time ago. He had forgotten me. A deep, cold calm settled over me. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was the quiet feeling of a very long, very patient wait coming to an end. This was the moment. The perfect moment. When the audience was largest and his guard was completely down, I closed the article. I closed my email. I opened a new tab in the browser. My fingers moved slowly, deliberately, over the keyboard. I typed in the address for the domain registry service. I still remembered the password. The login page was simple, blue and white. Domain registry services. A box for the username. A box for the password. My fingers, stiff from the gardening, hovered over the keyboard. The plastic keys were worn smooth in the center. I typed my username, eDesigns 1980. I pressed the tab key. The cursor blinked in the password box. I typed it slowly, each press a deliberate action. Golden Hill Forever. I had never changed it. I moved the mouse. It made a dull plastic click on the login button. The screen refreshed. A new page appeared, my dashboard. It looked old, forgotten. At the top of a short list, there was only one entry. JulianEleanorDesigns.com. Beside it, a small blue link, Manage. The hum from the computer tower seemed to get a little louder in the quiet room. I clicked Manage. The next page was called Domain Settings. I scrolled down, my eyes passing over my own name. Eleanor Vance, my Escondido address. My contact email. All correct, all paid for. I kept scrolling until I found the section I was looking for. Forwarding. It was empty. A small line of text read, "This domain is not currently forwarded." It was a dead address. A digital ghost. There was another link. Add forwarding. I clicked it. A new box appeared, empty and waiting. I opened a new tab in my browser. I went to a different website, a free, simple web page builder. I had created this page 6 months ago, right after I read the first rumors of a sale. I logged in. The page was there in my drafts. I had named it The Ledger. I opened it to review it one last time. It was exactly as I had designed it. No anger, no flashy colors. Just a plain white background and clean black text. At the very top, the title, "I was watching." Below the title, I had uploaded the first image. It was a high-resolution scan of the original partnership agreement, the one I had taken from the metal filing cabinet behind me. Julian and Eleanor Designs. Both our signatures were at the bottom, his a confident sprawl, mine a careful, precise script. Underneath that, a second image. On the left, my original concept sketch for the Coronado shipping logo. The interlocking C and S, dated, signed EV in the corner. On the right, a screenshot from Julian's current company website, from the Our History page. It showed the same logo, with a caption, one of Julian's iconic early designs. At the very bottom of the page, I had written only 3 sentences. He forgot I was watching. I didn't want his money or his fame. I just wanted the part he took that wasn't his. This is my ledger. I'm taking my name back. It was all there. It was simple. It was quiet. It was the truth. I went to the top of the web page builder and copied the page's public web address. It was a long, complex string of letters and numbers. I clicked back to the domain registry tab. The empty forwarding box was still blinking, waiting. My hand was perfectly steady on the mouse. I moved the cursor into the box. I right-clicked and selected Paste. The long address filled the empty space. I scrolled to the bottom of the page. A single small blue button waited for me. Save changes. I looked at the button. I thought of Julian on his stage in San Diego. I thought of his singular vision. I thought of the woman in the photograph on my wall, the one who had signed the papers in the rain-streaked coffee shop. I took one slow breath. The air in the study felt cool. I pressed the button. The mouse clicked. A small wheel appeared next to the button, spinning. Saving. Then the text changed. It turned green. Your changes have been saved. Please allow up to 1 hour for the redirect to become active. It was done. I leaned back in the old wooden chair. It let out a long, low creak. I had not broken any laws. I had not hacked any systems. I had used my own key to open my own door, and I had placed a small, truthful sign in the window. I closed the registry tab. I logged out of the web page builder. I looked at the dark, blank screen of my phone on the desk. I did not know who would find it. A reporter. A lawyer for Global Syntax. A curious fan. But I knew someone would. Someone always checks the history. Someone always looks for the old address. The next morning, the sun came up at its usual time. It painted a warm yellow line across the study floor, just as it always did. I woke. I made my coffee. I sat on the patio listening to the morning sounds. A delivery truck down the street. A neighbor starting their car. The house was quiet. I did not go into the study. I did not turn on the computer. I had placed the sign in the window. That was all. There was nothing more for me to do. I would not sit and watch, waiting for someone to walk by. The act was for me. For the ledger, it was finished. I went back to the garden. I knelt on the foam pad and returned to the weed I had been pulling when I first heard Julian's voice. The earth was still dry, still resistant. I worked slowly, my fingers in the dirt. I moved from one small dead plant to the next, clearing the soil. I made lunch. A simple sandwich. I sat at my small kitchen table and ate it in silence. The phone on the wall counter, an old beige model with a cord, did not ring. The afternoon was long and warm. I took a book from the shelf in the living room and sat in my armchair. The pages were soft, the text slightly faded. I read about a woman traveling through Italy. I turned the pages. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked. 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock. 3. There was no explosion. No sirens. No angry calls from Julian. I had not expected them. My revenge was not a shout. It was a whisper. It was the kind of thing that does not make a sound when it lands. It just seeps in. It changes the color of things, slowly, from the inside out. He was in San Diego, waking up to congratulations. His lawyers were signing papers. The people at Global Syntax were finalizing their new, celebrated asset. And somewhere in their piles of paperwork, someone was doing their final checks. Someone was typing old names into a search bar. Someone right at that moment was probably frowning at their screen. Who is Eleanor? I did not need to see it. I knew. I had set the ledger right. At 4 o'clock, the house felt very still. The light outside had begun to soften, turning from yellow to a pale orange. I closed my book and placed it on the small table beside my chair. I decided I would make tea. I stood up, my back stiff from sitting. As I walked into the kitchen, the telephone on the counter rang. The sound was sharp, sudden. It almost never rang. I stopped, my hand halfway to the kettle. It rang again, a loud, demanding brrrring that echoed in the quiet house. I looked at the small plastic screen below the buttons. Caller ID. It was not a name. It was a number and an area code. 619, San Diego. It rang a third time. I picked up the receiver. It was cool and smooth in my hand. I held it to my ear. Hello? I said. My voice was steady. There was a half-second of silence on the line. Just a faint electric hum. Then a woman's voice. It was young, quick, and careful. Hello. I'm trying to reach an Eleanor Vance. This is she, I said. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a reporter with the San Diego Business Journal. I waited. My hand was steady on the receiver. I could hear the faint sound of typing in the background on her end. Ma'am, the reporter said, and her voice became more cautious. I'm calling about the Global Syntex merger with Julian Vance's firm. I was doing some final due diligence on the company's history. I see, I said. This is going to sound strange, but I was looking up old domain registrations. Just being thorough. I found one, julianeleanordesigns.com. Are you the Eleanor from that name? Yes, I said. I am. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. The typing stopped. So you've seen the web page, I stated. It was not a question. I have, Sarah Chen said. Ms. Vance, the documents on that page, the partnership agreement, the design sketches, are they authentic? I looked through the kitchen doorway at the photo on the wall of the study. The two young people, smiling in the sun. They are authentic, I said. I uploaded them yesterday. My God, the reporter whispered. Then her professional voice returned. Mr. Vance's official company history, the one filed with the press release, it doesn't mention you. It describes him as the sole founder, a singular vision, he calls it. He has been calling it that for a very long time, I said, my voice quiet. This is a very serious claim, Ms. Vance. If your documents are real, this changes the entire narrative. This could put the merger in jeopardy. Global Syntex is buying his legacy. If that legacy is... She paused, searching for the word. If it's inaccurate, they have a problem. We have a major story. I could hear the excitement in her voice. The hunger. She had found the crack in the wall. Do you have any other documents? She asked, her words coming faster. Emails? Letters? Can you give me a comment on why you chose to post this now, on the day of the sale? I could see the future she was offering me. Interviews. My face in the business journal. Lawyers calling. A long, loud, messy fight. Julian, finally forced to look at me, to speak my name, even if it was in anger. It was not what I wanted. I did not want a new audience. I just wanted to correct the old one. Miss Chen, I said, there is nothing else. What is on that page is the truth. It is all I have to say. But Ms. Vance, she pressed, you don't understand. This is your chance. You could tell your side of the story. We can get it out there. I have told it, I said. I didn't want a story. I just wanted my name back. The ledger is corrected. But I have to go now, Miss Chen. I am making tea. I placed the receiver gently back into its cradle. The click was soft, final. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the phone. The silence of the kitchen returned, deeper this time. 2 seconds later, the phone rang again. Whirring. I looked at the caller ID, the same 619 number. Sarah Chen de Burring. She would be relentless. She had her story. She would not let go. I did not pick it up. Instead, I reached behind the phone. My fingers found the thin plastic cord that ran from the phone to the jack in the wall. I pinched the small clip. I pulled it. The cord came free with a small plastic snap. The ringing stopped in the middle of a ring, cut off. The silence was complete. The kitchen was silent. The phone was dead. I looked at the small, clear plastic plug in my hand, the end of the telephone cord. I let it drop. It made a small ticking sound as it hit the wall and dangled. I turned back to the counter. I filled the kettle with water from the tap. The sound of the running water was loud in the small room. I placed the kettle on the stove and clicked the knob. The blue flame lit with a soft whoosh. I opened a cabinet, took down a simple white mug, and placed a tea bag in it. Then I stood and waited for the water to boil. I did not need to see the business journal tomorrow. I did not need to pick up the phone when it started ringing again, as it would after Julian's office was contacted. And they would be. The reporter, Sarah Chen, was too ambitious to let this go. I knew exactly what was happening in San Diego. Julian would be off his stage, his award in his hand, a glass of champagne at his lips. His phone would buzz. It would be one of his assistants, his voice tight with panic. "Julian, there's a reporter on the line. She's asking about someone named Eleanor." His smile would freeze. That smooth, practiced confidence would crack. Then the call from Global Syntax. Not from the CEO, but from their head lawyer. The voice would be cold, precise. "Mr. Vance, we've encountered a discrepancy in the founding documents. We are putting a pause on the merger, pending a full review of the intellectual property." A pause. A review. His magnum opus, his final sale, his singular vision, all held up by a single quiet web page, by a name he had worked so hard to erase. His world was no longer stable. The past he had buried was no longer buried. The kettle began to whistle. It started as a low hum and grew into a sharp, steady cry. I turned off the flame. The whistle died. I poured the hot water into the mug. I watched the water darken as the tea steeped. I carried my tea from the kitchen, through the dim study, and out the back door onto the patio. The sun was low. The oppressive heat of the day was finally breaking. The air felt lighter, cooler. The first shadows were stretching across the cracked terracotta tiles. I sat on the old metal bench. It was still warm from the day's sun. I sipped my tea. It was hot and I drank it slowly. There was no joy. There was no triumph. I did not feel victorious. I felt quiet. I looked at my small, dusty yard. The weeds I had pulled were in a small, dry pile. The soil was waiting. He had taken my name, my work, and my history. He had left me with a feeling of being small, of being a ghost. Now, the ledger was balanced. I had taken my name back. The city of San Diego was a distant, unheard hum to the south. I was here in Escondido in my garden. I did not need an audience. I did not need a reporter to tell my story. I had told it, and that was enough. I finished my tea, placed the empty mug on the bench, and picked up my trowel. There was still light left in the day. I had work to do.